Hi guys. So I finally got around to watching the new CGI Resident Evil movie, Resident Evil Death Island. And while I was watching it, I had a couple of thoughts. So I wrote them down and today I'm going to share them with you. However, before we start, I'm going to put a disclaimer right here. Anything and everything that I will say regarding the characters and the stories is based off of my knowledge of the games that I have played. I have not seen any of the previous Resident Evil CGI movies prior to this one, so just keep that in mind, okay? Keep that in mind. So let's begin. So first, I'm going to give you a little rundown of what happens in the movie. So the movie opens up with a flashback to, yet again, Raccoon City, and this is where we get to meet our villain for this movie. Now, in the actual movie, the flashback is split into three parts that, as you progress through the story, they give you more information. But for this review, I'm just going to tell you exactly what happened. So basically, our main bad guy, whose name is Dylan, was sent to Raccoon City so that he could rescue any Umbrella operatives, and he was told that he was not supposed to help any civilians at all, and he was authorized to use, and he and his team were authorized to use force and even lethal force if civilians were to get too, let's say, pushy. So fast forward a little bit, Dylan is now tending the wounds to his team who have been bitten but still haven't become affected. In the other room, there's Dylan's best friend who is talking to his superiors at HQ, and HQ tells him that he is to terminate anyone that has been bitten or is infected, and that applies to everyone except for Dylan and his best friend. Now, when Dylan hears this, he gets very upset because it's his team. He doesn't want to kill them, and so he and his best friend start fighting. And while they're fighting, the rest of the team become zombies or infected, if you will, and they start breaking through the glass. Now, they struggle for a little bit, and then the best friend takes the gun and kills them, all the while Dylan is just lying on the floor screaming, "No!" Yeah. So because he did that, he didn't help terminate his teammates, his best friend ended up getting bitten. And HQ tells Dylan, "You are to kill him because you are to kill everyone that has been bitten." And his best friend hearing this is like, "Oh my god, I don't want to die." So they struggle a little bit more, but long story short, Dylan kills his best friend. And that's his backstory. That's what happened. That's his motive. Then we are introduced to the main characters of the game: Leon, Chris, Jill, Rebecca, and Claire. And we get a little bit of an update of what they have been up to. So Leon is still doing ops for the government. I'm guessing in the beginning, he's chasing some guy that was kidnapped. Then we have Jill and Chris, who are working for the BSAA, and currently the BSAA is investigating a new virus that has been turning people into zombies. Then we have Claire. Claire is still working for TerraSafe, which, if you don't know, Claire works for TerraSafe in Resident Evil Revelations 2, and it's an organization where she helps victims of bioterrorism. In this particular scene, Claire was called because a whale washed to shore and it had a tracker for TerraSafe. And when inspecting the whale, Claire said that the bite was too big to be made by any known shark. And then we get to Rebecca. I don't know where she works. I'm not very familiar with Rebecca, but she seems to be a computer genius for reasons I will specify later on. So fast forward a little bit, we have Chris, Jill, Claire, and Rebecca all together in the same room because the virus starts turning the humans into zombies that Jill and Chris are eradicating. Some traces of it were found in the whale that Claire found. So that's how everything kind of connects. And I know Leon isn't here, but I'll explain where he fits in later. So then Rebecca tells everyone that all of the victims of the virus had one thing in common. They all had been to this island called Alcatraz. So they all ship off to Alcatraz Island, and not even 5 minutes in, everything goes to hell. People are getting infected, people are dying, and at some point, Jill gets separated from Chris and Claire, and that's when Leon joins the picture. Now, Leon is in this island because the person he was chasing, a doctor named Davis, has been kidnapped, and he was brought to this island. So that's why he's here, and that's where he fits in all of this shenanigans. So they fight, they find the bad guy, they fight some more, some get infected, they get cured, they defeat the bad guy, and everything, and all that's well ends well. That's a very summarized version of what happened. So now let's get into details. I have quite a few things I would love to touch upon. So the first thing I would like to say is that this film takes place between Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 7. I got to that conclusion because there is a scene where Chris and Jill are talking about the trauma they both went through in Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 5. And on top of that, Chris is still working for the BSAA, so that's how I place the movie within the canon of the games. Now, I don't know if the movies are canon with the games, but this is just how I'm going about it, okay? So now I'd like to individually talk about the characters and what I thought of them in this movie. So let's start with the one that I have the littlest to say about, which is Rebecca. Rebecca is barely in this movie. I think she has around 10 minutes of screen time, and that's me being generous because she's really is not in this movie a lot. Now, I am not very familiar with Rebecca. However, in this movie, she comes across as a super genius. She fixes every problem as soon as it presents itself. So that's pretty much all I have to say about her. Again, she doesn't have a lot of screen time. There's not a lot to say about her. So next, I would like to talk about Claire. She also was pushed to the sidelines in this movie. Now, I know that Claire and Chris are siblings. However, I have never, ever, in the games, seen them together in one room. So I was kind of hoping to see more of an interaction between them. But Chris is way too focused on Jill to remember he has a sister. And Claire here, I was surprised to know that Claire is still working for TerraSave. So that's pretty much it. Also, who is that? Who is that? I'm sorry. That is not Claire. The last time I saw Claire was in Resident Evil 2 Remake. What happened? It seems to me like they were following more of her Revelations 2 face model. And I don't know why they would do that because the fans have been very vocal about not liking that face model. But yeah, that's it. I was just caught a little bit off guard because of the difference in her face. Maybe she's like this for a while in all the movies, but as far as I know, she doesn't look like that. Now let's discuss Leon. Leon, I feel, was very awkwardly placed in this movie. The way he fits into the main scenario is very awkward to me. So I don't know what's up with that. Also, he looks a little different. I don't know. I look at that character and I'm like, your name is Leon, but your face is not Leon. Again, maybe he has looked like this for a while in the movies, but the last Leon I saw was in Resident Evil 4 Remake. So that's the one I have a reference. Again, Leon and his cheesy lines, he wouldn't be a Resident Evil game or movie without a cheesy line for Leon. Alright, now we move on to Chris. Chris. Chris is in this movie. He's quite concerned about Jill. He's worried that she's pushing herself too hard, trying to save everyone. And he gives a speech that I think was a little too long in my opinion. There are some speeches in this movie that I thought could be like cut in half. So yeah, that's Chris's main thing. He's there to hype up Jill. So now, let's talk about Jill. Jill is without a doubt the main character of this movie. She's front and center all the time. And to be honest, I don't mind it. I love Jill. And she looks the best out of all the characters. It seems like she's the only one that actually follows her remake model. I don't know why they would just use her remake model. Maybe she hasn't shown up in the other movie, so this is kind of like a debut, and maybe that's why she's front and center in this movie. I don't know. All in all, I quite like Jill in this movie. I don't really have a lot to say about her other than that. She was cool, she looked nice, that's all. So now let's talk about the villain. This Dylan dude is a very weak villain. His motivation is honestly a little stupid. He's basically upset that he had to kill his best friend, and now he wants everyone in the world to have to kill a loved one so that they could feel what he felt, and as a consequence, there couldn't be any more cover-ups from the higher-ups. Personally, I think this could all have been avoided with therapy. I just think that this is a very weak motivation for a Resident Evil villain. Also, I don't know what's up with this dude, but I think he considers himself a philosopher. And he has a god complex. I mean, the god complex thing is something we've come to expect from Resident Evil villains, but it wasn't done right here. So that's why, to me, Dylan really falls short as Resident Evil villains. From the games I've played, he's the worst Resident Evil villain by far, and that's not a really good thing. This movie, I think it's way too short for the story it's trying to tell. This movie is like an hour and a half long, and not 1 second did I feel a sense of urgency in this game, and I'm going to explain to you why. So the movie gets down to business quickly. It tells you what's going on and it tells you where it's going on, and I do like that. However, there's this scene right at the beginning where Rebecca, Jill, Chris, and Claire are gathered before they go to the island. And at some point, Rebecca tells them, the virus that is infecting these people is very similar to the other viruses we've studied and that we have a vaccine for. So I can make a vaccine for this one. And you're just like, 50 minutes in and you already have a cure to the thing you're trying to stop? What is this? I mean, okay, and this is what I mean. Rebecca is established as this she's big brain, let's say it like that. She just fixes every problem like that. The moment they show up, she's there to kick them out of the park. From that moment on, I had no sense of urgency whatsoever. Because she was like, I have a cure for this. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're rolling credits. Like, what the hell is that? And mind you, this movie takes place in like 2 days. So it was very, I didn't like that decision. I think this movie would have benefited if it had a longer runtime, maybe more 30 minutes. Because a lot of things happened, and the movie wants you to think that those are bad things that are happening. But there's no sense of urgency because things get resolved within 5 minutes of them happening. How am I supposed to feel like, oh my... Okay, there's this point in the movie where Claire, Chris, and Leon have been affected with the virus, and you're like, oh, they're gonna turn. No. Not even 5 minutes later, guess who just rolls up with the vaccine and heals everyone? Rebecca! It's just so weird because everything, they kind of want you to feel like, oh, everything went wrong. But but seconds later, everything goes right. That's not good pacing. That is not a nice way to pace a movie. Okay, so, this is going to be a controversial opinion. I feel like I have seen these characters so much over the past, 3 years, that I feel nothing seeing them on screen. I'm not like, oh my god, it's Leon again, I've missed you so much. I have finished playing your Resident Evil 4 remake game like a month ago. You're fresh in my memory. And then you have Chris, Resident Evil 8. You have Jill, Resident Evil 3 remake. You have Claire, Resident Evil 2 remake, again with Leon. And all that stuff. I mean, Rebecca, I was glad to see because, she doesn't show up a lot. At least not for me. So Rebecca I do like, but all of the other 4, I was like, okay, you're here. I know everything you do. I just feel like Resident Evil has such a rich roster of characters that they could have used other characters with more potential for this movie. The movie in on itself was a little... But yeah, this is what I think. They have so many characters and they keep using the same 4. I get that they're popular and I get that they're iconic and fan favorites. But it gets a little old. And in this movie, it got old fast. This movie was 1,000,000,000% fan service. From the beginning to the end, it was nothing but fan service. And that's not a bad thing. I'm pretty sure a lot of Resident Evil fans are going to see this movie and they're going to be like, this is one of my favorite movies ever. It has every character that I love. And good for you. Honestly, good for you. But I feel like a movie, to be a good movie, needs to be more than fan service. And that's something that's really missing on Death Island. Also, zombies. Zombies show up like twice and they're gone. They have a little callback for the liquors because of course you do. But I feel like maybe if they had created a new variant of a zombie, something, I think it would have been better. And not just reutilizing assets. But so now let's talk about the final boss fight. So the monster for this final boss fight is Dylan. Surprise, surprise. He uses, I think, a virus to fuse himself with a mutated shark. And he becomes what I can only describe as a Final Fantasy 13 monster ripoff, but zombie-like. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. But yeah, final boss fight. So slow, so underwhelming, and so short. What is this? I know I said the movie is short, and yes, it is. But fight scenes can still be good even if they are on a short film. That was not the case here. Especially the final boss fight was just, oh my god. I mean, the monster that Dylan fused to looked good. I'm telling you, it looked much better than the final face of Nemesis. It looked interesting. It was a big monster. It was cool. It was cool looking. It was criminally slow. For what it was, that monster was not enough. Like, it looked cool, but it wasn't cool at all. I'm just gonna leave it there. So in this final boss fight, they mainly focused on doing callbacks to other boss fights, and I found a few that I would like to share with you. We have a callback for Resident Evil 3 Remake. You know, the final boss fight with Nemesis. Jill has this huge gun and she has to shoot Nemesis. This is exactly what she does in this boss fight. She finds a plasma gun. It's just there, and she's like, bring him in closer and I'll shoot him. And she has to wait for it to power itself up, and then she shoots. Sound familiar? And then guess who gets the monster clothes? We have Leon and we have Chris. We have Chris in the back of a car with a machine gun shooting the monster to get him close. Sound familiar? Another thing I did not like about this final boss fight was the way they handled Rebecca and Claire. I feel like they have forgotten that Claire has survived in a monster-infested island, because she not even 1 minute in this final boss fight and she gets swooped off the side with Rebecca so that they can go enter a password to disable the virus. And I mean, why couldn't Rebecca do that herself? Do they not like Claire? Is this where we're going? And this touches up against another thing. So by this point, the virus, which is in the form of mosquitoes, has been released onto the world. However, conveniently, Claire has the password that will be able to override the system, and they do that within 5 seconds. And they override the mosquitoes, everything stops, no one was infected, and then they redirect the mosquitoes to the monster, making him much, much weaker. And that's basically where Rebecca and Claire's story ends. They only make a brief appearance at the end. And the last reference that I found was to Jurassic World. You know the scene where Claire is holding those things that make smoke to lure in the T-Rex? This is exactly what she does. This is exactly what Jill does to mutated Dylan. She lures him in, she talks some shit, she dives into the water, he dives into the water, and then Chris and Leon shoot something and they decapitate him. The end roll credits. So, yeah. Why don't we talk about some things that I liked? I liked the visuals of the film. It was a pretty film. It was nicely done. It was polished. And the fight scenes, all of the fight scenes except the final boss were somewhat interesting. They had some flair to them, although I feel they could have used a little more of a, like, wow, the wow factor. This movie missed the wow factor from beginning to end. That's very sad. So another thing I would like to point out is, as I told you guys, I haven't watched the other movies prior to this one. So I was very surprised to see Claire and Chris in the same room, acting like they've been together for a while now. And I was surprised to see that Jill knew Claire, and I was surprised to see that Claire knew Rebecca, and I was surprised to see that Leon knew Claire. All in all, I feel like I was surprised to see that they all were talking to each other like they were old friends. I mean, some exceptions, of course, but yeah. Another thing is, almost every 5 minutes in this movie, characters are talking about how Jill is practically God. Jill is everything we need. Jill is amazing. We don't need to worry about anything because Jill is here. Not even the bad guy gives Jill the virus because he wants her to make the same decision he did when he had to kill his best friend. Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Jill gets a lot of time to shine, and that's not a problem at all. I like Jill. However, you can definitely see who this movie was for and who is the main character here. I don't know why they would fill the movie with all of these other iconic characters, fan favorites, just to push them all to the background. Like, I mean, there's no problem in focusing in one character, but you didn't market the movie as such. That's what I'm trying to say. It is pretty clear to me who is going to be the main character in Resident Evil 9. It's Jill. Some of you may be very happy that she's on her way to be the main character in a Resident Evil game. Personally, I am very meh on it. I just feel like I said, they have a lot of characters. Some of them have very interesting stories that weren't finished, that could really elevate the genre, and I just don't think Jill is going to be the character to push Resident Evil to its next level. I'm not hating on Jill, okay? This is just my opinion. Another thing is, like, Claire, not even once does Claire mention Moira or Barry or Natalia, and again, I am assuming that the movies are canon with the games. Revelations 2 ended on a pretty interesting note. Like, Moira was also part of TerraSave. Claire has continued. I don't know if Moira has. The movie doesn't say anything on it. And spoilers. Natalia is two people in one body. There's a Wesker there. Alex Wesker is there. So either they kill Natalia and Claire doesn't talk about it, or they still don't know that there's a Wesker there. One of the two. So yeah, I feel like this movie needed more. It needed to be more than it was. Yeah. I mean, it's a solid C+. I'll give him that. It has all the great characters. The voice acting is weird at times, but I can look past that. It's just a lot of... They wanted to do a lot, and they failed. Like I said, the movie was short. There was no sense of urgency. There was never a time that if you watch this movie, there will never be a time where you think anything's gonna go wrong. Because like I said, a problem shows up, 5 seconds later it's solved. Even the big problem gets solved within 5 minutes. I just feel like they could have handled this movie differently and better, which they didn't. And it saddens me to say, because I really like Resident Evil and I would have loved to have loved this movie. I didn't. But would I recommend it? If you're a Resident Evil fan, especially if you're a Jill fan, you are gonna love this movie. Would I watch it again? No. It's lackluster and it just doesn't hold up to me. So that was my review of the Resident Evil Death Island movie. If you watched the movie, please let me know what you think. Did you like it? Didn't you like it? Feel free to comment on anything I've said in a respectful manner. So, yes. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on all of my social medias. All of the links will be in the description box below. So that was it. I hope you guys liked the video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.